If you're feeling a little warm right now, everybody, it's perfectly normal. It's going to get a little toasty on this Friday night here on Outpost Unknown. We are exhuming the X-Files. I'm Matthew. He's Jeremy.
Hey, everybody.
Tonight we're going to light a few fires. Mulder and Scully are going to investigate a pyrokinetic. So we're talking Fire, directed by Larry Shaw, written by Chris Carter. So the last few times we've encountered sort of subpar X-Files episodes, there's been a common theme and written by Chris Carter. Is that going to continue with the episode Fire? Well, let's find out. Jeremy, set us up. Set the stage.
So we're in Britain somewhere, and it is the weirdest Grey Poupon-ass commercial I think I've ever seen in my life. Because you have, like, this rich guy walking out of his front door towards his car. You apparently have all of his staff, from his gardener to his driver to his wife to his butler. They're all standing out in front of this house.
Yeah.
And he stops at his car to, like, wave at everybody, like, hey, goodbye, my employees, my people. And then he just combusts. He just started, like, they're all there. The whole scene is just everybody's outside to watch this guy get lit on fire for no reason at all.
Yep.
And then out of the corner, you see this smiling dude, and it's fucking, like, it's Crowley from Supernatural.
Yes! This was my saving grace through this episode. Because I don't want to bury the lead. I don't really like this episode much, but I love Mark Sheppard as an actor, and I fucking love him as Crowley in Supernatural, and I will watch anything that Mark Sheppard is in, and so I was just along for the ride as Mark Sheppard started burning shit.
So it always seems that he plays just about the same exact guy, at least in the first few minutes. Like when you first see Crowley, when you first see his character in Firefly, when you first see him in here, it's always the same, like, twisted smile on his face. Yeah. His eyes are half shut, and, like, all right, he's gonna be an evil guy with
he's a bad guy.
Yep.
Got that bad guy face.
What happens is that Mulder and Scully, that happened in Britain. Mulder and Scully go down to their car, or they're going to go somewhere to do something, and they see this audio tape sitting on the dashboard. And it's like, oh, is this going to be like a Deep Throat thing? Is somebody dropping off, intel for them? They put it in, and it's this gal's voice telling them about a car bomb that's going to be activated by this tape, or at least threatening that's.
What a bitch! Already, this chick's a bitch.
God. And then the car door opens. There's this chick standing outside, and then you find that it's this old flame. Haha, fire! This old flame in Mulder's life. That I don't know if it was quite the girl that got away, but it was.
I don't think she's the girl that got away. Her name is Phoebe Green. He literally calls her the Terror of Scotland Yard at one point in this episode. And they kind of, I guess she would be your stereotypical man-eater type woman, where she's just kind of like, I think she went through who she wanted to go through, and Mulder was just, in there, and maybe sort of broke his heart in a horrible way.
She came across as that girl that was like the best pussy you ever had and hurt you more than any other girl ever did.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then they go, like, right outside this car door while Dana is watching. I guess she needs to piss all over her territory or something. She kisses Mulder.
Oh, yeah.
It is the weirdest fucking side mouth. Did you watch this kiss?
Yeah.
You need to go back and watch. Like, she kisses the edge of his mouth, and it's like, ugh.
It's strange. It's very, very strange. But what's funny is Scully's reaction to this. This isn't the first time in this, or this won't be the last time in the episode she sees this chick kissing Mulder. And every single time, Gillian Anderson has this amazing look of absolute disgust on her face. Like, because she knows that this chick is no good. Like, she knows it from the very beginning. And what's actually cool about this scene before we leave it here is when they're coming to the car, it really struck me what I deal with in my sort of world where I work, where Mulder and Scully are coming out of court. They've been in court all day. And I think that's a really cool little moment because that is something that an FBI agent has to do as part of their job. You do all these cases, and there some of them are going to end up in court. And I love the little moment in here where it's kind of like a throwaway line, and Mulder says something. It's like, yeah, hey, you know. It was, I guess when there's UFOs or aliens, they don't prosecute too often or something like that. And it's a nice little thing to show that they do have other duties that they responsibilities and duties that they have that we don't see necessarily from day to day. I did like that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, you got to flesh out the world beyond Mulder is just a mystery hound, and Scully's trying to keep him in
Yeah.
line for sure. So, Scotland Yard, or at least this gal, needs American resources in order to figure out what's going on with this particular killer because they're coming up with a lot of things that just couldn't be possible. And apparently, this gal only knows one dude in the world that could possibly chase down the weirder side of mysteries. So they go to meet and I don't remember if we run into a lot of different agencies within the FBI, but they go visit the fire guy,
Yeah, the
and
arson specialist.
he is the just as weird as Mulder is about the X Files, only he's about fire. Like he's talking about how it's an art and how like
This guy's a creeper.
yeah,
This
he
guy
was a
this guy is a
creep.
creeper because he's like looking Phoebe up and down while he's talking to her. And at a certain point I actually wrote this down. I wrote when the FBI arsonist is talking to her and Mulder, he's like, quote, I wish I could be in your shoes, unquote, to Mulder. And I put everyone thinks this chick is super hot and I don't see it. I don't understand why everyone is like looking at this woman like she is just God's gift.
She
Um,
is a girl with green eyes.
yeah, I do think it's funny though. Earlier in the office, there's a great sort of a little conversation piece between Mulder and Scully, where Mulder's telling Scully about his past with her, like, oh, they went to Oxford together, and she was kind of like the man eater thing, and Scully goes, "Well, Mulder, you keep unfolding like a flower," and Mulder's like, "I was just extending her a professional courtesy," and Scully goes, "Oh, is that what you were extending?" Fantastic line. That was a good line. Got a chuckle out of me.
But yeah, well, in that same scene, Mulder decides that he's going to continue pursuing this because there is a mystery there. And then Scully asks him, you know, she can see that he needs backup or at least some sort of support because he's going to start having problems with this girl, and she throws it out there like, I can
Yeah,
help you with this. He's like, I got to face my demons on my own. He
yeah,
just leaves her behind. So cut to the or we're in America now. I'm still not really sure what Crowley is doing, like why he's targeting who he's targeting. Like
yeah.
he,
Yeah. It's a little confusing because this family, this British aristocracy family, is coming over to America to because I think what the deal is Crowley tried to target them before, or there was a threat or something, because there's this whole subplot side thing with I'm just going to call him Crowley. I think his name is Cecil Lively or something.
yeah,
um but Crowley was sending like love letters or something to these women. And we get these like voiceovers of Scully throughout this episode talking about how this unknown killer is targeting these women with like sexual,
yeah, it's a
release or
profiling
something.
him.
Yeah, yeah. So I think he was doing something. Maybe he got a little creeper on the woman because we see that shot. Remember when he's looking through the window and the camera is just like ogling the woman as she's in the kitchen. It's like
Yeah,
looking at her ass and like moving up and down her body. So I think he followed them there to try to like get with this lady or
but
something.
that's what he did with the. Okay, so you had the dumb fucking Grey Poupon dude at the beginning of the episode that got roasted.
Yeah.
His hot ass wife, so that's why Crowley was there. And you eliminated the guy that was between you and that girl. So you just immediately latch onto some other chick. So
Yeah.
is his
Hey.
kink roasting the dude and watching the girl get mad about it, or really upset about it.
Hey, we don't kink shame here on Exhuming the X-Files. Whatever Crowley's into, you know,
We're here for it.
we're
Yeah.
here for it.
So Crowley is walking, or there this other couple that apparently Crowley latched on to because we fucked that other chick. They come to America. There's the driver who's apparently like this really good driver / bodyguard, and is coked out of his mind in this scene because Crowley's walking around the outside of this house with his Crowley face on, with his eyebrows like turned towards his nose a little bit, that big smile.
His Crowley face.
He walks around the edge of this house, and the driver's just standing out front for no reason, and he's got the shakes. Like I think it was just supposed to be the initial part of a sickness, but the dude is smoking a cigarette, and he just looks like he's coked out of his mind.
Yeah,
and then Crowley goes and talks to him for a little bit in this really weird scene that I don't really understand why the two needed to talk face to face. But Crowley is like, I will go get you some cough medicine.
Yeah, I think it's to try to establish the driver in this story somehow, because they go back. We find the driver like completely roasted later on, like, right? They go into the bathroom, and isn't that the driver? Or am I thinking?
Oh yeah, no, the guy that was roasted.
Yeah. So I think they felt like they needed to set up the driver somehow in the story, and that was their how Crowley, does this thing to this driver. I don't know. It's kind of a confusing episode, to be honest. But Chris Carter wrote it, so
yeah. So we're on this roller coaster. So Crowley offers to go get him some cough medicine from in town without paying for it, that he was going to pay for it himself. And the driver's like, all right, you're a cool guy. Thanks, bud. He goes into town, gets some cough medicine, and then goes to a bar. Did he get the cough medicine from the bartender and put it in a sack?
I have
or is he just sitting at the bar fucking around with the cough medicine?
I think he's just fucking around.
No.
That's kind of the thing that he does in this episode. He just kind of fucks around.
Yeah. Well, so he goes to the bar with the cough medicine in order to cause himself problems by setting the bar on fire. Now, he doesn't start that way. There's just some skank at the bar that notices that he's sitting next to him.
She's a lonely housewife who's there to cheat on her husband with the guy. We don't need to call her a skank.
Oh, come on.
She's looking for loving.
Trash written. Yeah, she was looking for loving, without a doubt. So she turns, sees Crowley face sitting next to the bar, and I mean, it's not an unappealing face. Crowley is a handsome man, and so she immediately just leans into it. Like, she's already gonna fuck him the moment she sees him, and then he starts speaking with the British accent. She's like, "Oh, I like what I like what you're selling me here, brother." And so he's gonna start doing magic tricks where he lights his finger on fire to light her cigarette, and she's like, "Oh my god, hey everybody, look at what this guy could do!" And she turns around, his whole fucking hand down to his elbow is on fire, and he's just smiling at her with that Crowley face. And then he lights the bar on fire. Like, this feels. I mean, it was a cool scene, but it feels like he was just drawing unneeded attention to himself.
Yeah, it makes no sense why he does this. If he's in America and he's trying to sort of keep a low profile, why would you do this in a packed bar filled with people? Makes no sense.
Filled with eyewitnesses who all survived, I believe.
Yeah, it was written because Chris Carter was like, "Ooh, wouldn't it be cool for him to just light his whole arm on fire and then burn the entire bar? That'll be a cool visual," with no thought into how does this actually affect the story. It makes no sense.
He probably had some problem with a girl at a bar that rejected him, and he's like, "You know what? I'm going to write a scene where I light some bitch on fire. That's going to make me happy."
Yeah. It is practical fire effects, though. That's cool.
Oh, yeah.
I did appreciate it. I mean, it looks cool. It does look cool.
Yeah, the entire scene looks cool. It just doesn't make any sense as to why.
Yeah.
So Chick gets hospitalized. We get this weird scene where Fox mentions, and I think it's just one of those things where we just need to learn something about either Fox or Scully, like in the Ghost episode where we find out that Mulder was a huge fan of being an astronaut and all that. In this one, he says out loud that he has a photographic memory, and because of that photographic memory, it won't let him forgive or forget what this chick did to him.
Yeah. Do you remember what the hilarious thing that she says? Do you remember when we did this?
No.
So she tells him, "Do you remember when we?" Because there's a whole bunch of Sherlock Holmes allusions through this, where he's like, it was an in thing between him and her back at Oxford. Sherlock Holmes, they fucked on the tombstone of Arthur Conan Doyle. I'm like, you've got to be kidding, Chris Carter. Really? Like this, like how disrespectful is that to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle? Like, hey, yeah, Fox Mulder, fuck this crazy woman on your tombstone. That'll be a cool thing. But don't forget, there's also another thing that we forgot to mention here. It's established that Mulder is terrified of fire earlier on. And so that's part of the whole thing, like the manipulation that Phoebe has brought him on board this thing, knowing full well that he is scared of fire. And the reason he is scared of fire seems incredibly stupid to me. He tells Scully, he tells Scully that his best friend's house burned down, which is like, okay, that would be shitty. But that he had to spend the night in the rubble to scare off potential looters. And that's what made him scared of the fire. So it wasn't that he was in his best friend's house, like they were having a sleepover, and it started to burn down and he barely escaped with his life. It's after it was already put out. He had to hang out in the house overnight to scare off looters. What the fuck is that about? That makes no sense to me. Why would he be scared of fire? And why would a little kid Fox Mulder be hanging out in a burned down house to scare off looters? It makes no
Hyper
sense.
empathetic responses. That's if Fox just feels others' pain as though it were his.
I don't know about
And then
that.
he drags that baggage with him for the rest of his life.
Ugh.
So they get back. They get back to the house. Crowley's got his medicine, and it's I can't remember what the brand name of the medicine was, but if you look at the label, it's like there's a lot of shit written on it. So I had to pause that frame and zoom in on the cough medicine label. And
Wow.
immediately under the name of it, it said a strong medicine made in the country that invented coughs and colds. I thought that was kind of cute. I couldn't really read anything underneath that, but
That's
I
funny.
like goofy little shit like that they put in there. Why did I
That's
write
funny.
this down? We go back to, or he's feeding him this cough medicine, and apparently it's bad for him. I don't know what he put into it, and I think we probably should have spent the time lighting the bar on fire, establishing what he did to the cough medicine to kind of put this driver out of commission.
I
But
assume
he,
he was putting that weird accelerant in it so that he
oh,
could burn the driver from like the inside. That's what
oh,
I assumed.
well, I mean, he made him sick enough that he got to take over the responsibility of doing the driving and taking the family to this hotel where they were
Yeah.
going to a welcome reception. He needed to ingratiate himself further with the family because right at that point he was just the caretaker of the grounds, a guy named Bob.
Yeah.
And so I why do I have it written? I have the words written. Ben Brill, Ripper runs through it, smile. So apparently,
Wow, that's a deep
apparently,
cut.
or when apparently when he gives him the cough medicine, this driver the cough medicine, he
Oh.
has the Ripper run through its crazy smile and just a wily.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. We should also point out that there's all kinds of this episode is very sort of sexual tension heavy. Probably the most sexual tension in any X Files episode. Like this Phoebe chick just wants to jump on Mulder at all times. She even mentions, "Hey, I'm sticking around for a few extra days, and I got a hotel room. Wink, wink. Come on up." And Scully actually calls Mulder a little bit later, and it's like, "Hey, Mulder, you want me to come help?" And Mulder again says no. He says, "quote I anticipate having my hands full." Unquote. So at this point, Mulder, I think, is just going to go for it. He's like, "God damn it, this is bad. This is a bad idea." But yeah, she
Man,
was great.
she was good.
She
Man
was the
was
best
good.
I've ever had, and she's going to be a wild woman. And so he's going to go for it at this point in time. This is a recurring motif. There is an episode way later on, many seasons later. I cannot remember the name of it, but it's the one where it's like a comedic one where Mulder is talking to that Bambi scientist. Do you remember that blonde whose name is Bambi? And Mulder keeps telling Scully, "No, no, no, just stay back. I'm fine here." And it's hilarious. I wonder if it's a callback to this episode and how they play that. But yeah, a lot of sexual tension going on in this episode, and I don't know why, because this Phoebe chick is not
her,
oozing the
her
sexuality.
features could definitely be described as mannish,
I suppose you could.
handsome.
I suppose you could probably, describe her as that, but I just don't feel like she's oozing like sexuality. It's like this really weird, generic sort of like she's not playing sexy very well. Let's just put it
She's
that
not.
way.
She's not. So they get to the hotel. They're going to set up a sting kind of thing where Scully, Mulder, and Phoebe are all going to be watching this family at this reception to see if this whoever they're profiling ends up showing up. I did write a note here that Mulder ends up going to, and this is a really nice hotel. This isn't your
Oh yeah.
Motel 6. He goes up to his room and there's a concierge that brings his baggage with him, and then like Mulder turns around and hands him two $1 bills, just two $1 bills at this swank ass hotel. It's like, if I give somebody $2 bills down at Qdoba, they're gonna shit in my burrito.
I
But
didn't. I did not notice that. That's a great point.
and then they
Yeah, it's sad.
Mulder.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No. What do you got?
Well, I don't remember exactly in the timeline of this episode where it is. I don't know if it's before or after the initial fire happens and we see Mulder get scared, right? And he can't run in and save the kids, and then the firemen have to like save him, and Crowley pretends he's like, "Oh, look, I saved the kids," still trying to ingratiate himself in his family. And to your point, I don't understand why Crowley just doesn't burn who he wants to burn and do what he wants to do. I don't know why he's going through this whole song and dance
Well,
routine.
like he
It's weird.
talks to the kids and he shares a cigarette with them.
Yeah.
His kink is becoming the dad and then burning the dad and then moving on to some other dad.
Okay.
I think that's
I
what
mean, I can roll with that. But there's this great creeper moment from Crowley when Scully shows up at the hotel and she's looks and she sees Mulder making out with Phoebe, and she's got that look on her face and she turns around and Crowley's creeping on her from behind a potted plant with
Yep.
Crowley face just kind of smiling at her, and then Scully's like, "What the fuck?" And she turns away, looks back, and then boom, he's gone. I guess that's before the fire, because then Scully has to
Yeah.
run and tell him about the fire. But I was like, what a creepy shot. It's got like the shadows across his face and everything. I'm like, not trying to be inconspicuous, Crowley. You're just throwing it out there.
And he had no reason to even be there, really, because what happens next is that up on the 13th or 14th floor, a fire breaks out that Scully notices on the fire alarm, but apparently isn't being alerted anywhere else. And she goes and immediately tells Phoebe and Mulder, "Hey, there's a fire up there on this 13th floor." And immediately Mulder goes sprinting up the staircase. And this is where we learn not only does he have a photographic memory, but he's a marathon runner, because he does not stop for 14 floors of stairs. He just gets up to the top and he's not even breathing hard.
Yeah.
But as soon as he goes into that hallway and you can hear these kids like crying and screaming in the room, they're trying to give us the illusion that there's smoke everywhere, but it's not in the
Yeah.
scene. They're using steam, which just doesn't fill a hallway all that well. So he gets all the way down on the ground and he's doing this episode has some of the worst David Duchovny acting that I've seen. I think like his interaction with the chick that he's uncomfortable with being around. I don't get the illusion that he was ever attracted to that woman. I
Right.
don't get the illusion that he doesn't want to be or does want to be around her. Like I
No
think he's
chemistry between them at all.
and then he gets into this hallway and just starts acting like he was with the girl. He's down on the ground trying to pretend he's afraid and that he's locking up,
Yeah.
and you don't see any smoke. It's just supposed to build up tension, and you see fire down at the like it would cut away from him, and you'll see fire down at the end of the hallway, and then back to him and back to that. It was just a really long, cringy scene.
Yeah.
But then he ends up like not being able to make it any further, and Crowley swoops in, grabs both of the boys that were apparently abandoned in a hotel room upstairs while the parents partied downstairs. Gets them
So
out.
I like I like the idea that we see Mulder scared and vulnerable. I like the idea behind it, but yeah, David Duchovny. I don't know if it was because he thought the script was kind of shitty and was checked out of this, but yeah, he did not try to sell this at all.
At all. But he gets rescued by the fire guys,
Firefighters, is that the word you're looking for?
Yeah. He goes back to his room. It's this really awkward transition from where he's got just his underwear on and he's hanging out with Dana Scully, right? And he's coughing the whole time, and she's feeling really bad for him because he's just done all this smoke inhalation stuff. He's coughing, goes into the bathroom. Phoebe walks in the front door of their hotel room like, oh, I didn't expect you to be here, Dana. And Mulder comes back out, and it's this cute little scene where his chest is hanging out of this bathrobe and his underwear, and he covers his tits. Like he has no problem walking around in front of Scully in his underwear, but he sees this girl and covers his titties up.
Yep.
And he stops coughing immediately.
It's so silly.
So they get away from this scene, like they're out of the hotel. And then what happens? What is the next thing?
Eventually Scully figures everything out, because we find out while Mulder's been keeping her at a distance and trying to keep her away from Phoebe, Scully has been doing a bunch of investigation on her own, and she ran a bunch of names across passport databases and visa databases and found out that Crowley, I guess they don't know at the time that it's Crowley. They think that the driver is the person that has been doing all of it. And then Mulder's like, oh shit, I got to go protect Phoebe because she's running back there. And so that's how we end up in our endgame situation. Scully figures everything out. And because Mulder's sitting there in his bath towel, and she's like, are you interested in this? And then like, wow, okay. Scully's doing her job, which is actually investigating, where Mulder's just scared and googly-eyed, I guess, for Maneater.
Worst lovesick puppy acting I've ever seen.
Bad. It's real bad.
And so they go back or they find that it's the driver. They're going to go warn these people. They show up at the rich people's house. They go in the front door, and Phoebe is standing there on the staircase for no reason, making out with the dad.
She's like banging that dude.
Yeah. And I'm like, why include this? Like, it didn't, there's no resolution for it afterwards. We never really mention it again. It just happens.
The reason why they included it is because earlier on they established that Mulder and Phoebe's relationship imploded because Mulder found out she was cheating on him. And so when he walks in and sees her making out, they cut back to him, and it's a reaction that David Duchovny is like, oh, okay, yeah, you're still doing the same shit you were doing 10 years ago when we were in college together. And that's supposed to be the realization that she never actually changed. She's still the man-eater going around, fucking whoever she wants and manipulating people and doing that sort of thing.
He knew that from that awful kiss at the beginning of the car scene, or
he
beginning of the episode outside of that.
But he wasn't thinking with his brain at that point, Jeremy. He was thinking with something else, and Scully mentions it. Is that what you were extending?
Yeah, good.
Scully sees it.
And so they think it's the driver. They go upstairs. They find the driver over the toilet, and it's just the rudest death ever because the guy is just on like bent over the toilet, and he must have been vomiting in the toilet when he caught on fire. It's like, man,
Yeah.
you made
That
this guy
cops
sick.
are up. Yeah.
He was already out of commission, like job done. That guy was going to be out of the picture until you barbecued this whole family. You didn't need to light his ass on fire while he was fucking throwing up in the toilet,
Uh,
bro.
uh,
And so then they blow their entire pyrotechnics budget, or at least the rest of it, which they were saving for this scene, because like the bedroom where the kids or the family in starts catching on fire. And then Mulder, I guess we're going to show that Mulder is getting over his fear of fire because he immediately leaps in and
yeah.
starts fighting this fire like he's a gym, or he's in a men's gym locker,
He's got a
whipping other
towel.
dudes in the ass with a towel. Like he's like, ka-cha, ka-cha, and he's
His
doing the
towel is
worst stuff.
lighting on fire as
Yeah.
he's doing it. I'm like, Mulder, what are you doing here?
Everybody else that's smart just leaves, just walks out, just calmly walks out of the room while he's like fighting this fire. And then he gets out in the hallway, and they kind of do this neat pyrotechnics thing where Crowley is snapping his fingers, and the
Yeah.
fire is like exploding along the wall. It's like Mulder had his pistol drawn. He should have just shot him in the
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
head
Yeah,
at the end of the
absolutely.
hallway.
I'm sitting here, shoot him, Mulder. He's like, don't do it. Just stop. Like, come on, just shoot this guy, man. You just saw him roast the driver in the bathroom. You think this guy's going to give a shit? No,
No.
just shoot him.
But no. We did get to see that cool. The fire going down the hallway scene was very
Oh yeah, I think all the pyrotechnic stuff in here when they actually do it looks cool. Like even in that room where the bed lights up, I was like, "That's pretty sweet," you know.
cool. Yeah.
There's a couple facts about this case as I was reading that sequence in the hallway with Crowley, that long shot down the hallway when all the fires are exploding on the side of the wall. If you look closely, you see Crowley drop in the background, like drop down. It's because it got so hot that he had to drop because he thought he was going to burn his face off. And then in the very next shot, he's still standing. But if you look closely in the one right before it, he actually falls to the ground because he was scared. And apparently, David Duchovny actually got burned. His hand got burned in this episode. There's earlier on, or maybe it's during this sequence, he puts his hand on the wall to like lift himself up, whatever, and he goes and he like it hurt. Well, apparently he actually burned his hand right there,
Jeez.
and it left a scar. So there was actually a lot of danger that took place on this set with all the pyrokinetics or pyrotechnics.
So he gets out of the hallway and he finds Crowley's one weakness, splashing him with jet fuel. I
Is it a
can't
weakness
remember.
though? I don't. It's
Well,
actually not.
it immediately incapacitates Crowley, and he starts walking around like,
Yeah.
oh god, and he stumbles out onto the front lawn and then just combusts.
Well, okay.
And
I had a question for you. I actually wrote this question down. What is Crowley's actual power? Because when they are in that house and they're trying to deal with him, they realize, oh, he's rigged the entire house with all this accelerant. Because they've established in this episode that he's getting large amounts of accelerant to be able to burn stuff. And even the gym towel that Mulder's holding, as soon as he said it, it lights up on fire. He's like, ah. So does Crowley actually can he actually mentally catch anyone on fire, or does he have to have this accelerant to make it happen? Because
I
it
think
seems he has to have the accelerant, right?
I think well, maybe he's just really good at flourishing his hands and hucking like lit matches and stuff. I don't know.
Well, now that
What
I'm thinking about it, they even say at the very end, because he's still alive, he doesn't die, and they say he's got like Wolverine regeneration ability, right?
yeah,
He's in that like I don't know, what do they call
iron
those?
lung.
Yeah, the iron lung thing. And they even say weird fires are starting to catch all over the place in this hospital. So clearly the accelerant is not necessary, but why would he use it in the first place?
I don't maybe he like okay, so you had that scene in the bar where he just lit the one finger to light the cigarette.
Yeah.
Maybe he can only create very, very small flames like that. Like he's basically the human equivalent of a Bic lighter, and to light lighter or like fire everywhere, he's got to have either alcohol all over the bar from the bar scene, or planting accelerant everywhere in order to light shit like the hallway or the bed or the towel on fire.
Would have been nice for the writer of this episode to explain it,
Yeah.
because I'm confused.
Welcome to the club. But it looked cool, so
It did look cool, yeah.
then the end of the episode, Crowley burns up in the yard for, I'm still not quite sure, because he's really, really stunned by getting splashed with that accelerant.
Yeah.
He burns up. They stick him in an iron lung, and he starts recovering almost immediately. By the end of the episode, he just looks like him again. So we get that, classic X-Files stinger at the end, where maybe this guy might come back in the future.
Yep. Yep. A few different sort of facts about this from Wikipedia. The character of Phoebe Green was supposed to be a recurring role, but this episode ended up being her only appearance. And thank the gods, because I did not like this character at all. She's an asshole type character. She's manipulative. She brings nothing to the table here. I would not have wanted to see this character show up in episode after episode. Chris Carter explained the character's origins, Phoebe Green, saying, quote, "I thought it was interesting to show a little bit of Mulder's history by bringing an old girlfriend back. I've always wanted to do a Scotland Yard detective who was a woman. I also thought it was an interesting chance to use Amanda Pays, who is the actress, and make a villainess of her." The other thing was the executive producer said that this episode was, quote, "a hard one. Any kind of fire stunt is a major undertaking because it involves so many overlapping things. It was a major feat, a real logistical and creative feat because you wanted it to look good." And I think it looked good. I think we agree on that. It looked pretty cool.
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
series creator Chris Carter said Fire was, a quote, "a very popular episode, and I'm just somewhat happy with the way it turned out. Having written it and imagined it in certain ways, I think we could have been a lot better. Although I thought it was generally well directed, the show felt very wide to me, very loose, and lacking some things." So this episode, I actually like it more as we are talking and laughing about it than I did when I watched it. I think it's one of those things that I like Mark Shepard in it. I love Crowley. He's fantastic. He does different accents in this, and he kind of shows some cool little things in this. But overall, I'm just this is a very meh episode for me. I would lean more towards dislike than like. But talking it through with you, I'm like, it's not as bad as maybe I thought when I watched it.
Well, the it would have helped if David Duchovny didn't phone in almost everything that he did during
Yeah,
the episode.
for sure.
Um, Gillian Anderson was good as she normally is. There's a couple of the talking, profiling parts which were interesting. The effects were really, really good in it, and that's kind of what props up a lot of it. But there was some really dumb shit that just happened for the purpose of happening in an episode, which kind of made it weak. But is this the best episode? No, it's not. Still worth watching.
Yeah, and I think the one thing you can hang your hat on in all these X-Files episodes, even stuff like Space, which we really didn't like, there are always moments in these shows that are good and well done. Whether it's character beats, character moments, just like the funny things that Scully says to Mulder about Phoebe and things of that nature. You can still get cool stuff from it. It's just sometimes the overall story is a little bit of a slog and a chore to get through. So, but if you're an X-Files fan, I have no doubt that you'll like Fire. Now, from Fire, we're going to talk next week about Beyond the Sea, episode 13. So whereas we thought maybe there's some phoning in happening here, I don't think phoning in happens on Beyond the Sea. And this is one of those episodes that I think everybody who if you haven't been sold on the X-Files by now, this episode will sell you. So we're going to talk about Beyond the Sea next week. So check back next Friday here on Outpost Unknown, and we will see you then.